Hi there, and welcome to your first flipped history video. The beginning of our videos will always start with learning intentions and success criteria. These will help you with your notes. The first learning intention is to know the Asian migration theory. The the success criteria is I can name the migration route of the first occupants and indicate it on a map. The second learning intention is to know the different Aboriginal groups in the territory of present-day Quebec. The success criteria is I can name the groups that belong to the different language families and indicate them on the map. And finally, the third learning intention is to explain the way of life of different Aboriginal groups and the social structures. And the success criteria is I can explain the way of life and social structures and categorize artifacts belonging to different Native groups.
Many thousands of years ago, human beings began a great migration from Asia to North America. This map shows an area that scientists called Beringia. Now, Beringia on the west, which is this part here, is Siberia, or Asia. And in the east, we have Alaska. Now, human beings, as the map shows through the arrow, crossed a land bridge that was caused by an ice age. So the oceans had froze, which created glaciers, which exposed a piece of land that human beings were able to migrate across. Scientists have recently dated the first migrations of these people to about 14,000 years ago. The first settlers in Quebec happened right around 12,000 years ago. Why did these people move? So in this case, the land bridge wasn't just something that human beings used to cross. Animals also crossed the land bridge. And the theory is that people followed the migrations of these herds of animals, many of which are now extinct. So as this chart shows, some of these animals don't exist anymore in North America, like saber-toothed cats, or ground sloths, or even camels, mastodons and mammoths. They're all been hunted to extinction. But these are the animals that these people hunted and followed. So here's an example of these hunters hunting a stag moose. Now, moving forward to the period just before the arrival of the Europeans, right around 1500. There were three main groups of native people that lived in the territory of present-day Quebec. They're the Algonquians, the Iroquois, and the Inuit. Now, the Iroquois lived in the St. Lawrence Valley, so this is the red. The Algonquins lived in the area of the Canadian Shield, and that is the area in between the St. Lawrence Valley and the north. So these are the Algonquins. And finally, we have the Inuit, who occupy the Arctic, or the north. Those are the Inuit. And I will put in red here for the Iroquois. Okay, so those are the areas that they inhabited just prior to the arrival of the Europeans around 1500. Now, the Iroquois were a sedentary people, so that is, they stayed in one place for an extended period of time. Oftentimes, an Iroquois village would stay in one place for about 15 to 20 years, and then the people would move on to find a new place. They were farmers, they practiced farming, they lived in these long houses, and their villages were surrounded by a wooden fence or a palisade. The Iroquois were divided into a number of different tribes. So they straddled the the borders of Quebec, Ontario, and present-day New York State. So as you see here, you have the St. Lawrence Iroquois, which were in the St. Lawrence Valley. We have the Huron here in Ontario, And we have the Mohawk Confederacy, of which the most important tribe that we will be looking at is the Mohawk here. Others, like the Petun and the Neutrals, were around as well. The Iroquois were farmers. They got most of their food from farming, and these are the three main crops that they grew, and they grew together. So they grew corn, they grew beans and squash, and these were known as the Three Sisters. The people responsible for the farming were the women, and as a result, these societies were known as matrilineal, where the women had a great amount of power. And this is in contrast to the Algonquin or the Inuit, which were patrilineal societies. The Algonquin were a nomadic people. They lived in wigwams, and they moved around hunting and fishing. The people responsible for hunting and fishing were generally the men, and as a result, they had more power in these societies. These groups were smaller, and they moved depending on the seasons. This map here shows where many present-day Algonquin communities lived. Like we said before, they live to the north of the St. Lawrence Valley, but to the south of the Arctic. So most of these groups are found kind of in the middle here of the Canadian Shield. The final group are the Inuit. They occupied the Arctic. Their houses were the famous igloos in the winter, but they also used tents in the summer. They were also a nomadic people that moved according to the seasons. They were patrilineal because the men were responsible for hunting and fishing. And they were also more of a seafaring group where they used kayaks to hunt and fish in the water. Well, some of the things they hunted were whales or walrus.
Thank you for watching this first flipped history video. While you complete your notes, keep in mind the two essential questions for this video. Why do people move? And how does geography affect settlement? Remember to complete your summaries in your own words. Those are very important for when you go back over your notes to study. Thank you, and have a good day.